All right, welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Dollar Bin Digging. This is the article and video that I do for comicbookinvest.com, where I talk about those books you should just be keeping an eye out for in those cheap boxes. Whether you're digging at your LCS, the flea markets, yard sales, wherever you find your cheap comics and books, this is the stuff I think you should be aware of and keeping an eye out for. Now, I'm kind of sticking a little bit with the idea of magazines again. Hopefully this isn't boring you guys. I know most of you collect comics and magazines aren't your thing, but I still think it's information worth knowing because even as a comic book collector, you come across magazines and things. Now, last week I focused in on Wizards, which also tied in with comics because they were a comic book price guide magazine. But I have some other stuff that I still think you might stumble on in shops or at those flea markets and things that you should just know about, that you just don't ignore them. Just don't ignore them because you'll be doing yourself a disservice. So hopefully you don't mind us taking this little detour again into magazines, but I got a few more things I just wanted to cover, in this topic. And even this isn't it. I still got more, but maybe I'll take a break if you guys are getting annoyed by so many magazines. Let me know in the comments what you think, or if you want to see more of this weird oddball stuff. I like the weird oddball stuff, especially after 3 years of doing this. I have to steer into some weird directions to cover new ground. Otherwise, I'll be talking about the same books over and over again. That all being said, hopefully you like the content that I'm providing. Please let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe, hit the alert button. Keep telling your friends so I can keep growing my channel. And hopefully you guys reading the article over on comicbookinvest.com also come over and check out my channel because, I do a lot of stuff with Ben and Mike Morello and a lot of stuff related to comics and pop culture and in some cases, magazines. And if you just want to see what books and magazines I'm talking about this week, just hang on for a few seconds after the intro and I'll be right back. Okay, so I gave you the hard sell on magazines at the open there. But again, I really think these are things you should be aware of. Don't ignore them. Don't ignore them. I know you see them scattered on tables at yard sales and at the flea markets and whatnot, and you just go, this is crap. Better Homes and Gardens. You don't know what's under there. Take a peek. Flip through. You might find some heavy metals. You might find some weird oddball stuff. Who knows what you might come across? And it's just something you should be aware of. Eerie's, creepies. I mean, that's a whole nother subgenre, and we can talk about vampirellas and a ton of stuff. Today, I just have a couple of different categories, I guess, that we can look at just to kind of dig a little bit deeper into these magazines. And the first one being Epic, which I have sitting right here next to me. Now, Epic was a Marvel imprint and magazine. It's a Marvel magazine from the early 80s. And you can see here, this was Frazetta cover on issue 1, the premiere issue. Definitely cool. We always have to talk about the first issues of these things. First issues, last issues are always good to know, and there might be some good ones in between, but just for informational purposes alone, you should know the first issue of Epic. This premiere issue here, got this Frazetta cover, is definitely cool. And if you did find one, which I actually did, I found this at a flea market. I think I paid $1 or $2 for these. I can't remember if it was $1 or $2, but that's what we're talking about. These are cheap books, cheap pickups that you might find. And issue 1, what does this thing sell for? Issue 1 sells for, anywhere from $10 to $75. It's crazy. Wide range. Definitely a wide range. Auctions, again, sometimes you buy this weird off-the-wall stuff. Auctions, you might get shortchanged for the seller, because not a lot of people are looking. But if you do have, when you leave it out there, you might get something like as high as $75. Definitely a wide range. And condition, obviously, condition plays a role into it, but magazines, it doesn't even have to be like a 9/8 to be something that's sold. Magazines are a different animal, different collectors, different set of rules of what is acceptable and unacceptable, I guess. So you'll be surprised at some of the conditions of some of the magazines that might actually sell in the aftermarket and for the prices that they do, just because, getting a copy alone is hard enough, let alone, a pristine, off the rack kind of copy. But if you want to know what's available for Epic #1, if you were curious, well, there's a couple, there's plenty out there. I'm just going to give you a little range, just to give you an idea. Anywhere, again, from $13 to $76 you can find. Again, those are both buy it nows. So you can make your choices. Best offers. There's some auctions. There's a lot out there. But that's the kind of range that we're talking about here. Same as what actually sold. Which is going to lead into our next one, which is the one I actually have sitting right here next to me. And this is one you want to be aware of because this is actually issue 3, third issue of Epic. And this bright orange cover should catch your eye. So this should be one to easily remember. And you should remember it because this one does all right because this is actually the first appearance of Dreadstar. And I think there is some sort of option around Dreadstar. This is a Jim Starlin, you know, character and creation. Pretty cool. Something we could see in the future. But regardless, this was the first appearance. So this is one to keep an eye out for. If you want to know what this one sells for, well, it sells a little bit better than issue 1. Anywhere from as cheap as best offer on $13, but again, $75. So I guess maybe it's not better, but it's right in that same range. Definitely, again, wide range. And both of these sales were in October 7th and October 2nd. So recent sales on these. This is a book that actually moves quite a bit. And if you want to see what's available, maybe it's what I was thinking with the available prices, but the available is $25 up to $150 on this thing, as are the asking prices on the available. And if you look at that $25 copy, and it'll probably sell, it's not the greatest copy in the world. I mean, I'll zoom in here. Look at that. There's some water damage. It's a little chewed up, coming off the staples there on the side, and a lot of creases, a couple tears. It'll still probably sell for $25. You watch. Keep an eye on it. Go ahead, put it on your watch list, and we'll see if it sells for that price. I mean, best offer, maybe it can go for a little bit less, but still, if you find something like that for $1 and you can get like $20 out of it, why not, right? Moving on, we're just going to jump ahead for Epic and go to the last issue of the run. This last issue of Epic is also pretty cool because it does have the last Galactus story in it, which is also kind of a fun little nugget. It's only like 3 pages in this little, anthology, and that's kind of what this magazine is. It's basically like an anthology. There's many stories inside of it, a lot of known artists and a lot of known writers, a lot of good stuff. I mean, you can look here what this issue's feature. You got John Byrne, you got Alan Moore, you got Bill Sienkiewicz, you got Jim Starlin, Roy Thomas, Rick Veitch, Barry Windsor Smith, Al Williamson, Bernie Wrightson, and more. Like, there's a ton of great stuff in here. And Arthur Sudiem, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, did the cover. Definitely cool. But this last issue is also one you should be aware of. This issue number 34, because like I said, there's a lot in there. If you want to know what this sells for, here, it could sell for as low as $15. So you could sneak one, for $15. But if you look at what's actually available and some asking prices, well, $14 up again to like $67 for raw ones. These things can be graded as well. There are sometimes graded copies out there. I didn't put them in because it's definitely a different animal. It's definitely tough, but you see like a lot of 9.4s. Again, not a lot of 9.8s in the magazines, but CGC does grade magazines, so keep that in mind, as well, if you're interested in that. And look, even that $14 copy there, you can see there's a big chunk missing out of the corner there. So again, these books are not always in the greatest shape, and they're still out there. They still move. The market still moves on magazines. So you don't have to be 9.8 snob when you dig into this little area of the hobby. Moving on, we're just going to quickly detour into the Savage Sword of Conan. Just real quickly, just kind of dipping a toe. There are a lot of Conan magazines out there, so there's a lot to kind of cover if we were really get into it deep, but we're just going to just dip in just for a second. And we're going to look in, again, at the first issue of the Savage Sword of Conan. I think this has got a Bisley cover, or no, Boris Vallejo. I can't say the name, but you know who it is. Red Sonja cover with Conan there. Definitely cool. Definitely a cool cover. And this thing, it does all right. It's the first issue after all. So, it could sell for $43 at auction. Not too bad, right? For a magazine. That one looks in decent shape. That's the kind of thing you'll probably find is out there. Some crinkles. It's not perfect. It could probably use a press if you're going to do that, but I don't know if it's really necessary in the magazine world. If you want to see what's actually available as well on that, $90 or up to $200. So $90 to $200 is kind of that range for raws for that first issue of Savage Sword of Conan. And like I said, you can see auctions will sometimes come in under these asking prices because I don't know if the market's there. I know there's a lot of eyes being drawn to some of these books, but hey, just be aware of it. Again, I'm talking about digging for these out in the dollar bins, the cheap boxes, the cheap bins, those milk crates that go underneath, the long box tables that just have that random stuff in there. There's like preview mags and just some random magazines. That's the kind of stuff I'm telling you to keep an eye out for when you're going by your LCS, because most LCSs don't really pay much attention to magazines. I mean, they might know some of the big ones, but the rest of it is just like, we don't care. They're all $2. They're just in a box. Have at it. That being said, let's move on to the final issue of Savage Sword of Conan, which is number 235. Because as I've been saying for weeks, months, if not years, pay attention to last issues. It just makes a lot of sense. So here, we're talking first, we're talking last. And this last issue is another solid return if you can find one for cheap. So you can see here, one sold for 48 bucks at auction, 14 bids. So a lot of action on this book, even though it's not something that is very popular, that a lot of people are out there looking for. But cool cover, Savage Sword of Conan. Keep an eye out for it. 235 is that final issue. And if you want to see what's available, what are the asking prices right now? Well, $100 to $360 on this. So some steep asks, but there's a reason there's steep asks, because this is a final issue and it's not that easy to find. And they get that sometimes. If you're patient, you might get those kind of prices. So just be aware of that. Definitely be aware of that. And like I said, this is the kind of fun stuff. I like taking this detour away from comics for a little bit for this, because you can make a couple of bucks if you want. If you want to flip it because you don't care about magazines, just take a peek. That's all I'm saying. And if you don't want to flip, you just want to have something cool in your collection for cheap, why not be, hey, look, I got the last issue of Savage Sword of Conan. I found it for $1 at a flea market or a used bookstore. I don't know. I think it would be a cool story. But we're going to move on to our final little segment. And our final segment is actually going to look at some Magic the Gathering. Not exactly like Magic the Gathering magazines, but basically price guides. Just like Wizards, Magic the Gathering had price guides. And these early ones, they do all right. The Duelist in 1994, I think was one of the first. You can see here it was covering Arabian Nights on the cover here. This is kind of weird stuff. I find it weird because I wasn't a Magic the Gathering guy. I don't know much about it. I don't know anything about the cards. I've never really played. I never actually played it. I think I probably have some random cards here or there. Got some of the comics, but I don't know much about it. But now that I know that a magazine like this can sell for $69 or $195, I'm going to just be aware of it and look out for it when I'm digging through a box. I'm going to be aware of the Duelist because now I know there could be money there. $69 or $195. I know I usually don't give you two sale prices, but I wanted to give you a little bit of a range because these are a little odder and not the norm. If you want to see what's actually available, what's out on the market right now for the Duelist, $180 to $400 raw for this magazine. So there are collectors. Magic the Gathering, there's a lot of money in that, and there are a lot of collectors, and they'll be into things like this. If you're into Wizards because you like comics, the Magic the Gathering people are probably into things like the Duelist in that same kind of way. So just be mindful of that. So you could be finding something for the official Deckmaster magazine there. It's definitely pretty cool. Another title that I think also came out around the same time was Spellfire. This Skyer, the game card collector's guide, which is, again, another price guide. I think it came around the same time. I don't remember which one was first, but it's definitely that same, kind of early to mid-90s kind of range. So this Skyer #1 is another one to be aware of. I mean, it even looks like a Dungeons and Dragons, like manual, like to me. But this thing could sell for anywhere from $49 at 2 bids up to $153.50 with 11 bids. Those are auctions, people. And these were in October and September, so they're not that old. We're not talking about over the summer, like months ago auctions. This is stuff that happened within the last couple of weeks. So there are people actively looking for these things, and these are bids. These aren't buy it nows that were sitting that somebody eventually bought. 11 bids to get up to $153. Just be mindful of that. And you want to know what's available? Well, there's one up for $400. Straight up buy it now, $400. This is what I'm talking about. There's money out there in these things, so just don't poo-poo it and be like, I don't care about magazines. Give me more comics. Just saying, we can spend a couple of minutes to look at this stuff. It's worth it. It's worth knowing. And kind of tying back to Wizard did do their own card game magazine price guide. Inquest was their title for this, and this was actually issue 0 because 90s everybody loved issue 0s and 1/2 and 3 3/4 and 9 3/4, all that fun stuff. But issue number 0 for Inquest. This one is not as in demand as those other two, but just be aware of it because again, this is a Wizard publication, so this might be in shops with the old Wizard magazines, toy fairs, and the like. So just be aware of it. Just know what it is so you know what to look for. And like I said, this one, $20. This was a sealed one that sold. So $20 at a bid. It's not too bad if you can find one. I mean, sometimes you can still find these sealed, or you find them still in the bag with the card inserts, or maybe there's no card inserts. And that's another thing. It's a whole nother side of this market is you could be getting cards with these things, but I'm not going to get into it because I don't know that much about it personally. Again, This is just kind of broad strokes information. But if you want to know what is also out there and available for this Inquest magazine, well, I couldn't really find any that were up for sale for this issue 0. Just, I don't know, just weird, right? Just weird, none up there right now. Maybe I was searching for it wrong, but I found that sale. Found a few sales, actually, but couldn't find any available right now. So who knows? Be mindful of that. But hopefully you like that. And hopefully you don't mind this little side trip, this little detour into magazines, because again, like I said, I think it's worth knowing this stuff, even for cool comic stories that you're getting inside these magazines, like the last Galactus story. This was a cool little few pages just to kind of read through. I think it was John Byrne did the art and the story on that one, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, I could be misremembering it, but that being said, I still think this stuff is pretty cool and worth talking about and worth knowing. So let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. If you're saying, if you want me to shut up and stop talking about magazines and get back to comics, I can do that for a little while and save magazines for later. But if you are interested, I still have a few more ideas and avenues we can still go with the magazine, side of things. There's still video game magazines from Nintendo Powers and Game Pros and PlayStation magazines. There's still a lot of comic magazines, like I mentioned, with the horror stuff. We didn't even get the horror stuff or any of the Masters of Kung Fu and the Deadly Hands of Kung Fu type stuff. The Moon Knights, the Spotlights. There's tons and tons of stuff still in this realm of magazines that we could get into. But let me know what you think in the comments. Like, subscribe, hit the alert button on the channel. Keep telling your friends. Hopefully you're enjoying this. Let me know. And, let's keep having fun, right? This is supposed to be a fun hobby after all. So that's how I'm going to play it. I'm going to keep having fun. So maybe even if you guys tell me to stop talking about magazines, I might say, well, I'm going to do it anyway because I just want to. But we'll see. I'll see you guys later.